I went recently, like right before it started, to New York.
Yeah.
It was like my first time there, or not my first time, but first time in a long time.
When was that?
So it's about like 2.5 months ago.
Okay.
And I was really excited for this big trip, and I got to visit my friend who's starting grad school at NYU. And for some reason, we were walking down the street, and out of nowhere, I got like this feeling of anxiety in my stomach. And I was like, oh, this is really weird. Like, I haven't felt anxiety in years. Like, wonder what it's coming from. I hope it doesn't come. Like, all the typical thoughts that come with anxiety.
Yeah.
So that was pretty...
So out of nowhere, you just suddenly were
and then I tried to dive into it later. For some reason, it made me feel very anxious and insignificant. And just like, wow, there's so many, like, why does it matter if I sit on this bench or if I don't sit on this bench? Or why does it matter if I wear these shoes or other shoes, or if I say this thing or not this thing? So that's kind of where it started growing. And then it started growing more into like more existential thoughts of like, who am I even? Or like, why are we even here? Or like, what's the point of anything?
At this point, as a therapist, I feel a bit bewildered. One thing I know for certain is that this sudden attack of existential angst does not come out of nowhere. It's inconceivable that life could have been going entirely well for her, and then suddenly this out of the blue attack. So we've got to begin to track it down. One outstanding characteristic of the attack is her sense of insignificance, which is triggered by being in a large city. However, she grew up in a large city in Los Angeles, and we're going to need to start investigating the meaning of this. As I start to try to take some history from you in our first sessions, there was this puzzle that you had been extremely happy in your life. You had had a very good life, and nothing bad had ever happened to you. So that was the way I got. But the way,
that's how I would agree with all of that stuff.
You'd agree. But then, as I experienced it, as we went along, things started to change in that way. You know, you related to me that you never even had to fall off your bicycle, that you had good relationships with everyone. Your childhood had been perfect. And maybe that's why this was scaring you so much, because everything had been so perfect. But then, over these last few sessions, other things started to come up as we talked. I began to get the feeling that you really weren't that happy as a child. There were a lot of unhappy things going on, especially, last week when we talked about this brace that you had to wear for 3 years, and how awful that was, and humiliating it was for you in gym class and things like that. And then we haven't explored this in greater depth, but also that things were not always very happy at home. Your mother was a pretty unhappy woman, and she was pretty restrictive. And
I think she was happy. She was just worried. I don't know if
she's
unhappy
always worrying
is the
that
word.
if she hears a rustling outside in the yard and thinks that somebody's going to be dead, this sounds like that she is not.
But she isn't really. It's weird to me because like she really does worry a lot, but I would never in my life think of her as unhappy because she's so happy. But she's worried.